What's going on, Clippers fans? Welcome back to Clips and Dips, Season 2, Episode 77. A friendly reminder, the season's reset after the NBA draft. So the end of Season 2 is coming up. I am Chuck Mockler, joined by Adam Osland and William Updike. We're all back. We've been off. We've been in different parts of the country. I'm in Sierra Madre right now, which feels like a different part of the country. We got a lot of Clipper stuff to talk about. Adam, you've been a roadie. Will, you went to Vegas. How are you fellas doing? How excited are you to talk about this Intuit food as well as answer some Clippers questions?
I am very much excited to talk with you guys. It's been too long. I feel like I've been gone probably the most as of late.
You have. We've documented the absences.
Over the last month. Are these am I gonna get like dinged or something? Like
coming out of your pay for sure.
It's unprecedented, so we don't really know how we're gonna deal with it.
Poor performance grading or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm in good spirits.
Promotion isn't looking good right now, buddy. It's not looking good.
I was on the road with one of my favorite bands, Camera Obscura. Photo ops, my buddy was opening up for them. And then I got back. And today I met one of my favorite actors of all time in Burbank. So I feel like I'm living a charmed life. Maybe I'll let you guys in on who that was later in the show. Plus, we got the dips. I actually just
is it that big of a tease? Like, is it? Are we gonna be that impressed that
it's a weird niche
dragging
one.
it out?
I think it's.
If you're not impressed, I'm just gonna cut the cord live right here with some scissors on my microphone. This is one of my top 10 favorite actors ever. Somebody that you will know.
Jackie Chan?
Not Jackie Chan.
Oh,
good guess though.
Yeah, not Chris Tucker, who I do like.
I'm out of guesses.
But he is a refined.
Is it Martin Lawrence?
I'm going to say the most underappreciated actor of our time.
Can't wait to hear about it. Will, how are you doing? Do we all have dips, by the way, for the off season? Do we have dips?
I'm great. I didn't get a dip today. Was running a little shy on time. I'm very hot. It's very hot. I'm very sweaty. So you might see me dab myself down with a towel during this.
Chuck's about to cut your cord right now.
Man,
what about his performance? I've been gone for a month, but look at this guy. No dip.
It's documented. All I can say is that we've documented it and we're moving forward.
I have a great dip to make up for his lack of dip. I may have found the best dip ever, to be honest with you.
I'm excited. I'm house sitting in Sierra Madre, which is why I have this Crank Yankers puppet behind me, or whoever this is. But I
Isn't
found
that from the movie, the Murders movie with Melissa McCarthy?
I only know two puppet things, and it's Crank Yankers and that. So, yeah, that sounds like it's right.
What about all of Jim Henson or Sesame Street?
Okay, like adult puppet stuff, I guess. I have two things.
All puppets are puppeteered by adults, so they're all adult puppets.
Speaking of Jim Henson, the actor that I met earlier today, there's a 6 degrees of separation there. I'm just saying.
Well, we can't wait to hear about whatever.
Charles is in hell, and we haven't even started talking about the Clippers yet.
It's a Clippers show. We're talking about some actor you met.
But things are about to go downhill real quick. I just want to stay on the bright side of things.
Okay, we'll keep teasing this actor, and we'll play the cue when we're supposed to hear it. Before we get into Adam's one of the top 10 actors he's ever met, and the Intuit food stuff. There's been some Paul George scuttlebutt recently from Brian Windhorst and some weird Jeff Van Gundy scuttlebutt, which we're going to talk about. But first, Windhorst was on the Pat McAfee show. For those of you who watch the Pat McAfee show, he said he sees more trades being the big transactions as opposed to free agents, which I don't think is a big surprise there, given what the free agent class looks like for this offseason. He said there might be an opt-in and trade scenario like Chris Paul for Paul George, and that the Clippers and PG are not on the same page in contract negotiations. There are 16 days left for Paul George to opt, I believe, out or in.
Who is Paul George on the same page with? I just mean in anything.
It's not new information, but you're not wrong.
Reggie Jackson, Russell Westbrook,
John Wall,
Rondo, John Wall,
gone.
Where we
might be gone.
Again, this isn't new information, right? Like, it's not like we all thought that it was hunky-dory with the Clippers and PG's contract negotiations, but the timing is getting a little truncated. I feel, for maybe some weirdness to happen. He might just leave if there's a max out there and the Clippers don't want to give it to him. But I don't know. That would be worst case scenario. I don't necessarily love Paul George on a max contract, obviously, but letting him walk for nothing and not having $50 million to sign someone else doesn't feel the best.
Considering it's been the same situation basically since the start of the season with him being extension eligible, I would guess he and his team have gathered all the information. They have a pretty good read on the situation, whether or not the Clippers want him back and for how much versus what is out there on the open market with Philadelphia, with Orlando. Those are the two teams that have been discussed the most. And Philadelphia is not a bad landing spot considering they have a max slot open. They've been waiting for this. They've been preparing for this. And he can go to another team that's still a contender. Granted, in the Eastern Conference this time, he'll have to move across the country and leave home, but it's his last big contract. So I'm always all for get as much money as you can. It's a short lifespan being an athlete, and no one, I think, should be looked down upon for chasing the money, so to speak. If he can get the max and that's what he values most, I have no issue with that. So I just don't see how, if it hasn't happened at this point, what exactly is going to change in the near term before he just becomes an unrestricted free agent.
That's what I'm confused by, is that it's very clear that he's like 4-year max, and the Clippers are like, no. And
the guess is they are taking a hardline stance, that they know what the number is they're willing to give him. And on the other end of the negotiating table, he and his agent have another number in mind. They're not lining up at this point.
They've sent back and forth the same piece of paper with a number written on it. It's worn down. It's not even a piece of paper anymore.
Maybe it's just the sketch from The Big Lebowski. Actually, there's no number on it.
Yeah, they're not even looking because neither party's looking. They're just like, we know this isn't what we want.
Look, I would, given what's out there and what the Clippers could possibly do, given their cap restrictions, given the limited pile of assets that they have to distribute, keeping Paul George is more likely than not the best from an on-paper talent perspective that they're going to do. That's the best they're going to be able to do all offseason. Is that worth handing over a guy a max? I don't think so. Not a guy at 34 years old either. Like there's so many things that make this situation just a little bit different than some of these other situations. And as far as I'm concerned, like if it's max or bust for Paul George, I hope that with how long things are going on, I hope that there's still enough goodwill between parties that maybe we could work out some sort of sign and trade or something to that effect. But if it's max or bust, like, see you later, man. Like, I mean, and I guess from his perspective, like, wouldn't you rather be the biggest loser instead of being it at home, be it across the country, and then you can meet up with your friends and tell them all you're still doing really well? I don't know.
I'm doing great, dude. I'm doing so good over here.
Yeah, like if it's, I mean, hey, if he ends up in Orlando, no one's gonna watch your games anyways. So sorry, Orlando fans, but like,
should it be mentioned that, and I'm not at all making light of this, with all sincerity, that Paul George in the bubble really struggled with being away from home. Really struggled with being in that environment. And obviously the world is very different now, and going to Orlando or going to
Philly,
say
the same thing in Oklahoma City or Indianapolis. Or
right. He is a homebody. He loves Palmdale. He loves fishing. He loves all these things. It's just, I don't know. I really thought when he and Kawhi came to LA that this was their final destination for their career. This is where they always wanted to end up. And again, if that has changed, or if the money changes that, great for him. If he can get $50 million per year with the Philadelphia 76ers, I think it's unlikely the Clippers match that. You never know.
I like what you said, Will, about the goodwill with the sign and trade, because that is a large part of agreeing to the sign and trade, right? Like if the Clippers, I wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers, obviously I think the Clippers backup plan is they offer him what they want to offer him. He's obviously said no. And then I bet it's the 4-year max and then a sign and trade. I think there's no way that plan B is let him go for nothing. You know, I think they're probably trying to work both channels. What his trade value is, it depends on who you ask on any given day, because we've seen it go everywhere. But I have to imagine that breaking glass in case of emergency with due diligence is a max and then a sign and trade.
It isn't though, guys. I don't think a sign and trade in today's NBA can happen. I think it's so archaic and so parametered that there's just no way to pull it off because it hard caps the team he goes to. Philly's not going to be hard capped. That's not going to happen. I think it's an old way of negotiating. When was the last sign and trade we saw? And this is
Kevin
this
Durant.
is a new salary cap world.
Oh, it was KD. Was it?
Was it Kevin Durant?
I think so.
I think that could be, but that was before all the rules that have come down over the last 2 years. It seems legitimately, I'm no salary cap expert, but 10 times more difficult in terms of running a franchise and playing within the salary cap rules, especially for a team like the Clippers or the Golden State Warriors that wants to overspend, that wants to spend as much as possible to win. There are so many more constraints than there used to be.
Yeah.
I don't think a sign and trade could happen with Paul George because of that, because of the amount of money we're talking about and the competitive teams that want him that are already going to be over the first apron, like the Philadelphia 76ers. I think it would have to be an opt-in and then a guarantee from the team that he's going to that they're going to give him the extension.
Ooh. Which, again, he's teammates with James Harden, who I'm sure is like, be wary of that, maybe, buddy.
I just, if anyone knows, put it in the comments how realistic a sign and trade is in today's NBA landscape, because it just seems like you really have to thread the needle more than ever.
Would you do so? Here is a fun. It's a quack. I don't know why this thumbs up is going off for those of you watching. I didn't mean that thumbs up. It's a quagmire where, again, it's like 2 weeks for him to decide, basically, for the opt-in, opt-out for this last year. Locked On Pelicans proposed an idea, and Will and I have talked about something kind of like this, which is PG and Russ for Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. And they worked it out to where that works. And we're just spitballing here. We're just having a good time. Thoughts on this trade idea? Because I have seen people talk about a swap with the Pel. It's, I'm not advocating.
Why did the Pels do it in this scenario?
I think you get someone who's theoretically maybe a little better at defense. I will say this: the comments on this video, no one liked the idea. No Pels fan was really on board with this idea in the comments.
Well, I mean, I understand the defensive liabilities of Brandon Ingram. He's just at an age and just a star level that he's a better guy to carry your team when Zion is out. Like, he is a better he's the better scorer. He's like the better leader of a team than Paul George. And in the CJ McCollum thing, like, given sort of like what you've already given up and everything, maybe sure it is like a sunk cost. That seems like just a really, I gotta be honest with you. I don't get that one for New Orleans at all. If that was on the table, I mean, I'd take it. I don't know what you do with CJ. You got to ditch one of him or Norm that already hasn't worked before, and they're now both older. Right. So I mean, I would do it personally, but
why would New Orleans do it? Yeah.
I don't get why the Pelicans make that move.
Yeah, I obviously would like that for the Clippers, even with Brandon Ingram and his struggles this year in the playoffs. I'm a big fan of BI. I always have been. Goes back to the punch he threw at the Lakers. No. He was about
it, man. He is not someone to trifle with in the NBA. That is a well-known theme of Brandon Ingram.
Well, I just like, I don't know, quieter, more understated guys. It's one of the reasons I always like Kawhi Leonard, just pros like that. And his game with his mid-range to me is so intriguing. because he's a throwback in that way as well. And he's what, 26 or 27? He's just entering his prime. If there
He
was
doesn't want to be the third or fourth best player on a team, which is
That's a good call.
would be a huge
Paul
factor
George
for
does,
me.
though. Paul George would love to be the third or fourth best player on a team.
But get a max contract. But get a max contract.
Yes, exactly.
Is it Rick Moranis?
No.
That's a good guess.
He is a supporting actor, since you're talking about a supporting role.
So you brought up Norm, and Norm has been a guy whose people's focus for trades has kind of like the rain cloud has moved from Paul George, and now it's moving over to Norm Powell a little bit. I don't really know Norm Powell's trade value as a little more of an aging score first point guard who might be able to start, but
it has largely been healthy.
Very clutch. The Magic could maybe use him like something. They need a score first guy, but how would you guys feel about just the idea of trading Norm? Again, another guy on this Clippers team who it's very hard to value in a trade.
We talked about him before this season. He has value, even though he's making $18 million over the next couple of seasons. It's not expiring after this year, around $18 million. He does have, I think, value throughout the league. He should have finished top 3 in 6 Man of the Year voting. That is just
it's crazy,
abhorrent. It's ridiculous. He should have been in the 3-point contest. It's absurd the way he's kind of been viewed nationally by low-level basketball.
He's another quiet guy too, right? He's another kind of quiet.
I think that does work against him.
Agreed. For 6
I
men,
think
for sure.
he even mentioned that after he wasn't so quiet, after not being talked about enough, and kind of playing with a chip on his shoulder, maybe because of that this season. But he's one of the most efficient scorers off the bench in modern NBA history, I think. Like, that's not hyperbole. Norman Powell is
championship experience.
Yeah, championship experience. He can be a much better defender at times, but he is undersized. But for a scoring punch or a team that needs one, like the Orlando Magic, you could say, if you watch that first round series against the Cleveland Cavaliers, that's really the area they struggled in. I could see that making sense. And the Clippers don't have many other options from guys that you would think about or consider moving, even though we all love Norman Powell. It's someone that you at least have to take a call on if they're interested, just because you're trying to reconfigure the team right now. And a lot of that's going to fall into place once you know what happens with Paul George, maybe. But yeah, I think Norman Powell's a name to keep an eye on.
I think it behooves us to hold on to Norm at least until the trade deadline, mid-season.
Oh, I like that.
Just because you have a little bit more idea of like where contracts and spending is at league-wise. And with Norm already locked in, you mentioned that he's not an expiring, which for some teams is going to be a deterrent. But for teams who actually want to use him, like in a contender status, him being locked in at that price with a rising cap is an asset. It's another asset. So Norm, he's going to stay in the mix with those conversations just because he is one of the most, I mean, I don't necessarily want to do it unless the right move is out there, but he is like one of the most tradable sort of pieces that we have. He is, he's not a young guy. It just makes sense from an asset perspective.
I bet Norm is on 2 more teams after this. I'm getting the balloons now. I bet Norm is on 2 more teams. I bet if the Clip, because like you mentioned the trade deadline thing, which is when teams realize, oh, X wasn't as good off the bench as we needed from the point. Maybe we need to make an adjustment here. That can happen, I think, a couple more times. And maybe it is the Magic again. I mean, Jonathan Isaac is a young wing who has injury history. We've talked about this a little bit on this pod before. That's an exchange that seems like it works. He has been injured. Maybe the Magic are tired of it. I don't know. But that wouldn't be a trade, basketball-wise, that I would tip my nose at.
Houston, I think, is interesting. I mean, I wouldn't do a deal. I wouldn't do a deal with Dallas, but I mean, if I'm the Mavericks, I'm picking up the phone.
I would spit in their face if they sent me anything, of course, but I would listen.
Could use a guy like Norm right now. To me, Norman Powell is someone you move if you feel like you can strengthen a weakness somewhere else. And
Totally.
Norm is almost a luxury at this point because they do still have enough shooting. with how the roster is right now. I'm not saying he's expendable by any means, but if he's the guy to get a power forward, a true power forward, or just to improve the front court somewhere, you might have to do it, even reluctantly, because everybody loves Norman Powell and you know what you're getting. And even though he's 31, he just turned 31, he's still smack dab in the prime of his career. He's got bounce.
Yeah.
Like, he's a sought after guy I think teams would be interested in. And
he tried harder on off-ball defense this year. I thought his off-ball defense was one of maybe the brighter parts for that side of the court for him.
A Luka-esque defensive renaissance.
We should look up those blow-by numbers because I bet Norm's are better. One last thing before we get into these Clippers questions sent to us by fans all over the world. League sources told the Stein line that the LA Clippers have strong interest in hiring Celtics special advisor Jeff Van Gundy as a high-profile addition to Ty Lue's coaching staff for next season and a strong chance of succeeding in that pursuit after the NBA Finals are complete. First of all, I didn't know he was a special advisor to the Celtics. That was new to me. Secondly,
like this, like when Steve Nash was a special advisor to the Warriors or whatever. Like, well, I don't understand what you do. I've heard enough about what Jeff Van Gundy thinks about the modern game. I don't want him anywhere near my team. Certainly wouldn't pay him to do that. If you'd like to pay someone to complain about basketball, I'm very available, much cheaper. But yeah, I'll bemoan the modern game all day long.
I think special advisor, if you're a special advisor for an NBA team, you watch a couple games when you can catch them and then you just shoot off a couple emails to the brass. You say, hey, saw this.
I do think there's a different Jeff Van Gundy in the coaching realm than there was on ABC, ESPN, and that shtick.
Character versus coach type thing.
And Mark Jackson. Because he's been involved with Team USA over the last 15 years somewhat, right? I do think
similar position though. He watches a couple of games, sends a couple of emails, collects a check.
Maybe he was certainly a defensive-oriented coach back in his day. I liked him with the Houston Rockets, which kind of gets overlooked a little bit that time there. They did blow a series. They were up 3-1 against the Mavs, but he spoke out and got fined $100,000 for saying that the referees were intentionally looking at moving screens with Yao Ming based upon something said by Mark Cuban. It was a whole fiasco back then during, I don't know, this was, I think, 2005. That was the Tracy McGrady dunk on Sean Bradley. But I don't know. I'm interested. I don't know how much it changes the Clippers' fortunes having someone like him involved. The first thing I said jokingly was, is he also a doctor? Because what they've been missing is obviously just good health. But I wouldn't mind a different voice behind the scenes in the room. I think that always can help, a different perspective. If everybody's thinking the same thing, no one's thinking that old adage. So I don't know. Old school may play well with the Clippers. Maybe they need some of that fire and brimstone here and there.
That's a good call. And as we just showed his wonderful picture for Team USA, he's been the director of scouting for Team USA. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I kind of like, I don't know if I want someone who, I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't be mad at this. It would be interesting to see kind of how his version of, coaching and whatnot differed from how maybe Dan Craig was doing things, which is obviously who they're filling this in for. But it's interesting. If you like quiet, get your job done kind of stuff, this kind of fits it, I guess. But I don't know.
Does it?
Not really.
Get off my cloud.
Get off my cloud. Coming up, we are going to hopefully find out who Adam saw in beautiful Burbank, California today. We're going to get to some fantastic Clippers questions after this break. If you're listening on audio, thank you for listening. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. If you're watching, tell your friends to subscribe over on youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. We've had some awesome episodes in the off season if you're interested in cap stuff, and Law Murray going off on how the Clippers should play. So yep, we got ads coming up in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back into Clips and Dip. We just talked sort of all of the Clippers news, sort of circling around. Not a whole lot there, but there's some there's ongoing PG stuff, a possible coaching addition. But right now, we're taking your questions, which is the only news that we care about.
866-987-25.
Exactly.
Dude,
Exactly. Kicking things off, we got Jeremy Mormon, who says, if PG leaves, is Kawhi requesting a trade? He said that the Raptors weren't good enough to win. I can't imagine how he looks at the Clippers without PG. Charles, I'll kick this to you.
Interesting. Did Kawhi say that?
Did he say that? I don't
know. I remember it was maybe
him saying that.
alluded to, but I don't know if he actually said it. That being said,
because wasn't he the only big departure after that championship run?
I believe so.
He didn't leave Toronto necessarily because they didn't have. Obviously, that doesn't make sense to say they didn't have enough because they just won the championship. Right. He wanted to come back home. He wanted to come to the Clippers or possibly maybe the Lakers, but he wanted to come to the Clippers and wanted to see if they had enough.
So I don't think Kawhi requests a trade. I think there's a very short list of people who I think want to deal with switching teams less than Kawhi Leonard does at this stage in his career. I don't think he wants to go to a new team because he's kind of the center of the offensive universe a bit. That's not a bad thing. The way that the Clippers are constructed is around him and PG, that those two shot charts are supposed to complement each other. We all remember that beautiful graphic.
They've won 700. They have a 700 win percentage when both of them are actually on the floor. They've been great when they're actually out there,
and I don't think he wants to go to a new team and start something new or like learn a new system or deal with a new coach is the other thing. Ty Lue's locked up for past the end of his contract. And I think maybe after this contract, he's just done with basketball, possibly. So I don't think he requests a trade. I would genuinely be heartbroken if Kawhi requested a trade if the Clippers got rid of PG. I'm like, oh shit, now we're really screwed. But I don't think it happens. Fair question though.
To your point of how much longer Kawhi is going to be in this league based upon his temperament and being somewhat of a recluse, he said the night of getting the extension this season, they asked him something to the effect of, what are your plans after this? And he was like, I'll reevaluate and see how I'm playing at the end of this contract, because he'd be 35 at that point. So I don't see Kawhi Leonard making a stink if they lose Paul George, all of a sudden showing up on social media, posting cryptic things.
Dude, that would be insane. I would actually maybe, if it was a messy divorce, I would maybe welcome that strictly for the drama that it would produce.
I'm sure to some degree, Kawhi, nobody's more frustrated than he is with not being able to play, but I'm sure he understands what has happened the last 4 years, not being available for the playoffs at some point. And I don't know, may feel like there's still business at hand. I have to find a way to bring this franchise a ring. I think that is his focus. Everything he said this year, when they asked him about the contract, various topics, he just say, I don't know. I'm living in the moment and I'm focused on taking this team to places they've never been. That is pretty much verbatim what he had said all season long. And he was playing like that until, of course, unfortunately, the knee started to swell up right at the end of the year.
Will, where are you at? Do you think you request a trade?
I gotta be honest, I just don't really see it. Stuff would have to be going super awry. I just don't see any sort of like.
This isn't San Antonio with what happened there.
Yeah, I just don't really see any conceivable scenario. I mean, I assume that he's happy with the contract number that he got. This organization never drags him, at least not that I can think of.
Yeah, this organization does anything.
I mean, like, really, like, I mean, despite a lot of their failures in the playoff being, I mean, incredibly linked to his health. I would say 100% linked to his health. I mean, it's not, he's never hung out to dry. And it seems like he has the flexibility. He has his own staff and things. He's able to conduct his career and his life in the way that he wants to. I also think he was always a little bit more about the Los Angeles thing than Paul George ever was, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Florida boy Corey with a pretty good question. Do we rather want a rim protecting center or stretch 5 to back up Zubats?
Before you said to back up, I was about to jump out of my chair.
So how do we get Miles Turner for Ivica Zubac? I want to add a point to this. Law Murray on the last episode brought up a great thing about Kai Jones's role on this team. Kai Jones is going to be a center, basically, is what the Clippers are trying to make out of him. So
He should.
As he should. So based on that, I'm thinking the Clippers do not want a stretch 5 because Kai Jones is very much not a stretch 5, which is not a knock. The Kai Jones hive. I'm not saying he's bad, but it seems like the Clippers want a traditional 5, and then if they want to go 5 out, they would rather put a larger 4 there.
Yeah. I'd be good with that. Just a little bit of symmetry between first and second units where regardless who the type of center is behind you, whether it's Zubats or Kai Jones, they're playing a similar type of role. They're not playing out on the perimeter. They're both rim protectors in theory. We haven't seen enough, obviously, from Kai Jones. We know the potential and everything. Mm-hmm. But I don't mind that. It would be, Isaiah Hartenstein, while he did have a hell of a floater from about 10 feet out, you could say he could space the floor a little bit more because of that. He also wasn't someone that was shooting jumpers or shooting three-pointers, and it worked. They had a top 8 defense that year with him backing up Ivica Zubac. So to keep that going, I think uniformity between centers in their skill sets wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I want another rim defending center, and then we need another big wing who can shoot.
Yeah, and it's weird.
I don't need the center to do that.
Right. And if you look at the free agent centers, it's not like we're looking at an all-time list of shooting bigs who are available on the cheap for the Clippers.
It's Valanciunas and who?
Yeah, I mean, it's Valanciunas and Kevin Love is going to be an unrestricted free agent. Wiseman, he can't shoot.
He can't shoot.
There's no one who can shoot out there. No disrespect to them.
Is Andre Drummond a free agent? Because
Carl Tart. Yeah, Carl Tart's guy.
He's got the 3 ball.
AD. No, yeah, it's not very good. Does Alex Len shoot? No. Wouldn't be a bad backup 5 though.
The Len steal my sunshine jokes would be going on.
I'm a bit of a Len head. I cannot tell you why. Christian Hackney wants to know, what do you think are the chances of Bones being traded, even if Russ opts out? Seems like he isn't happy after last year, and getting sent home early before the All-Star break didn't seem like a good omen for him or the team's relationship. Love Bones in his play, by the way. Just don't want anyone here who doesn't want to be here or mess with the chemistry. Pretty good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would hope that if Russell Westbrook isn't on the team, they go right back to saying, Bones, this is your opportunity. You are the backup.
They should say that if Russ is on the team. I again, to me, Bones is another guy. I think right now, maybe you can get some bites on the potential of what he could be. I still think you're shooting yourself in the foot, not having giving him more touches and at least seeing what he can do, because it's the same situation. Honestly, if you take more opportunities and he fails, the trade value is honestly about the same, because people are still going to be the tools are there. There's some interesting opportunities. Maybe it wasn't a good culture fit, but if he hits, you either keep him or, he's worth substantially more. I think it's idiotic to assume that an old guy with a limited skill set and who wasn't that helpful in the playoffs is going to get regular season run over a young guy. I think that if that's the thought from the front office or the coaching staff going into this, I don't know why we're beating our head against the same wall. I don't get why we're going to just do the exact same shit.
Wasn't that helpful in the playoffs? Was very, very kind of you. After Russ had the worst 5 games shooting stretch in the history of the playoffs, I think going 8 of 41 the last 5 games of the series.
Hey, I got a dog. I got a family to think about. I can't be saying too much with the Russ stands out here. All right.
No, I get that.
Run up on Louis, dude.
I am in full agreement. I would love to see Bones come into this season knowing without a doubt he is the backup point guard. My point is the only way for that to happen, I think, would be for Russ to no longer be on the team.
Oh,
There would be too much confusion. If he is, I still want Bones. I still think he should be the backup point guard, but that's not. We know that's not going to happen if Russ is.
What if he gets sprayed by a skunk and he just stinks too much, so they can't? They're like, dude, you can't be in the locker room.
Calling Pepe Le Pew.
It is, but also the trade value thing is a good point, Will, because we got Bones for 2 seconds. What could his trade value possibly be? Would fans? I know that and again, this isn't a knock on whoever asked us this question. I don't think Christian Hackney wants this.
No, this is a great question. Yeah.
If we traded Bones for 2 seconds, I genuinely think Clippers fans would be upset. They would be like, what the hell is it? I'm like, yeah, fair.
It just goes again to like, we just don't have a lot of assets. And I mean,
because they're not developing anyone.
Exactly. Exactly. They don't develop anybody. And like, even if he ends up being a bust, you can still probably get those 2 seconds back. You know what I'm saying? Like the worst case scenario, someone is like, well, he's still very young, very raw, hasn't gotten a whole lot of time. Maybe we can do something with it. It's worth a flyer for 2 seconds. But to do it before even taking the opportunity, I just
or anything even.
Yeah, I don't really get it. To me, that's like selling something that's like flipping a property for a loss or something. Like I don't like what. So what's the point?
I'm only losing 10K on this one, dude. I made out pretty good.
You got to cut your losses sometimes, but the only way
is that where we're at with Bones? I just don't see it. I understand that he was sent home, but I also like this situation was not great. Like
I also blame PJ Tucker. Just full disclosure, I blame PJ Tucker being his vet for partly his shitty attitude.
That's probably exactly why they wouldn't move him, because teams were lowballing and they weren't maybe even getting 2 seconds back. And they know his potential if he had a chance to showcase it a little bit more, like we thought he was going to get coming into the season. But Bones Highland is one of the more talented young guys they've had on this team that has legitimately popped in spurts, in games.
Limited spurts.
He almost had, sure, but we're talking a couple of playoff games against Phoenix last year. One where he had 20-plus points and almost won them the game. They should have won that game, but that take fell on Russ. And then almost having 40 this year. There were times, though, when James Harden got back into the rotation as they were giving him some rest, and Bones had a great game against the Chicago Bulls. Once James came back, Bones did seem to drop his shoulders a little bit, knowing that he wasn't going to be featured or get the same amount of minutes and wasn't taking advantage of the small amount he was then getting.
He was bad in garbage time. He was really bad in garbage time.
He was. It seemed like he thought, I'm above this. And look, talent-wise, he should be somewhere. If he's not going to be getting minutes here, I can understand the frustration of a young player this talented that could easily be a backup for, I don't know, half the league, you could say. Like, he's good enough to be that player, to get 20 minutes per night in the NBA right now, but from half the teams. He is. And he knows his payday is coming soon. He has to show something in order to get that next big contract to stay in the league, and he simply isn't getting an opportunity. Now, understandable, they bring in James Harden. That changes the pecking order. But if Russell Westbrook, isn't coming back, it has to be Bones' job to lose being the backup point guard. Yeah,
I think that's a good call. It's interesting.
I think even if Russ is coming back, like I mean, I've said this before about this team, like no one here is like outside of Kawhi Leonard and like Paul George, like no one here has like earned anything. Like Zoo, obviously his spot is cemented, but like there's so many guys in this rotation that like no one should be so sure of their spot.
I agree with you, but we know realistically if Russ is back, Bones is not getting minutes.
Sure, which is a nightmare for a lot of us.
You're saying people can't change?
Not this team, evidently. We've seen a lot of not changing.
They have to take chances with giving guys and letting them go through those growing pains, young guys on this Clippers team. They just have to. They did it for a second with Kobe Brown last year during that 10-game stretch. There has to be more of that coming into this season because, to Will's point, what he was just saying, they don't have enough assets. They aren't developing guys. They aren't giving guys enough meaningful minutes. I know it's something hard to juggle when you're trying to also win at the highest level, but considering how many injuries they have had over the last 3 years and guys being out of the rotation, and they still haven't been able to develop. You can say Terrence Mann and Beats Zubas to some degree, but they're 26 and 27 now. They haven't gotten one of those young guys like Brandon Boston or Bones Highland in this case enough reps to me.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. It's weird, maybe because expectations are possibly lowered in some way next year. We get more run from the young guys, but that's a discussion for another day. John Stoddard with our last question. Another heater of a question. I cannot describe how good these questions have been. John Stoddard asks, the CBA is pushing teams like the Lakers to form rosters with 2 stars plus depth in the rotation and avoid 3 stars plus minimum salaries. But if Paul George stays, and James Harden, the Clippers already have 3 stars and some genuine depth. Don't the Clips have an edge on most of the NBA because their roster is the best of both worlds? It's a very interesting question.
If healthy, sure.
Yeah, if Harden comes back, PG comes back, and they're healthy, I agree.
I think the depth is pretty questionable still. Like the depth at the top tier talent is there. Beyond that, it's not great. Like it's not great 8-10 deep.
It's like 7. It's like Norm and then like question mark kind of off that bench a little bit.
It's also not exactly 3 stars like we've seen in the past. It's not exactly the Miami Heat where everybody's in their prime at once and everybody is available all the time. James Harden's about to turn 35 or 36. He was an innings eater last season. He played almost every damn game for the Clippers, but we know the history with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. In theory, yeah, they struck while the iron was hot and brought in James Harden, I think partly timing-wise at that moment because some of the penalties come in this summer when it comes to salary cap restrictions. Right. So that's part of the reason they did it. When they brought in Russell Westbrook at that time last season or the year before last now, that's a move that can't be made now by a team in their position. That's not something you can do anymore. So look, I have a lot of faith in this front office and their ability to be able to juggle the new rules with the salary cap. But I don't know if it's a perfect comp. The Clippers have, 3 stars, but also depth. We've seen Paul George not play like a star.
Glue guy.
Often.
Nothing to prove.
We saw him score.
Max glue guy.
We just saw him score 19 points per game in a playoff series without Kawhi Leonard. And I protected him a lot because what he did in the 2021 playoffs, dragging them to the Western Conference Finals without Kawhi. But what happened in this first round series was really a litmus test, was really a big opportunity, and he did not rise up in the moment. So calling them all stars, when you think of stars, it's not just dependent on those 3 having to be on the court together for them to all shine. It should also be when 2 of them are off or only 2 of them are on. They're still playing at an elite level where they could be featured by themselves with a team, during nights in the regular season where you're missing a couple guys. Like guys who are so good that they can still get you 30 at any time. I don't know if that's what we're looking at right now with Paul George and James Harden being older and Kawhi Leonard being so injury prone.
Yeah, they're stars in like the SEO sense. Like they're popular, right? But they're not stars in the shoot 30 times when we really need it type sense.
Does the game match the name anymore? Are they in their prime, all of them at once? No. Because if Paul George and James Harden, and James Harden was pretty good in that first round series, but if Paul George played to his capabilities of being known as a quote unquote star, they do win that series, I think.
Yeah,
I do. And I know the Dallas Mavericks are right now in the NBA Finals. To some degree, though,
not for too much longer, I don't think. But
I think matchups played a big role in that series against the Clippers. I think matchups played a big role for them against the Minnesota Timberwolves. and things have broke their way, as it always is when you get to the NBA Finals. There's a route of least resistance, and the Dallas Mavericks benefited from the Clippers not playing to their capabilities, even without Kawhi Leonard. I think they had a chance to win that series. I really do. I think if Paul George is averaging 27, they're winning that series.
Certainly makes it easier and makes us want to feel more about keeping Paul George if that happens.
I should at least say it goes to like a game 7, you know?
Yeah, a toss-up. Yeah, a do or die.
Coin flip.
Yeah. Thank you again to everyone on the questions. We got them from Twitter. We got them from YouTube. Coming up, we are going to be talking the Intuit food options, and Adam and I will be talking about our dips, and maybe we'll find out who Adam saw in Burbank, which could be a new fun segment on this show. So if you're listening, go ahead and turn it down. We got some ads coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in. It's Clips and Dip. I'm Adam Moslem. We got Chuck Mockler and Will Updike. We are back. It's season 2, episode 77 for you guys. Again, can't state or overstate how good the questions were.
Phenomenal.
That were percolating on our Twitter feed when Chuck threw that out there at Clippers Pod.
I mean, if you're listening during the offseason, you're clearly a very intelligent fan.
So yeah.
We appreciate it.
Now, we're foodies here, I think. We are called Clips and Dip. It would go without saying that we like to eat a little bit, that we like the finer things in life. And there's a new stadium opening up. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, called the Intuit Dome. The Clippers will be playing in the greatest arena to play a basketball game in the history of the world.
Okay.
Well,
from a design perspective, maybe.
What else matters?
Okay, true.
What is the history of MSG done for the Knicks over the last 40 years?
Fair.
Phil Jackson was there winning titles. I'm just saying, it's going to be the best place to watch a basketball game at, especially because modern amenities and because of the food list that's going to be there, which Chuck has for us finally outlined. And I guess we can give our rating or our excitement level for some of these dishes.
Yes, there is one large detail we're going to talk about when it comes to the popcorn that I'm furious about, that I understand if other people are not as furious about. But before we get into that, the LA Times put out a 12-minute video about the Intuit Dome's food options. They have a house-made pretzel that they went to Bavaria and worked with famous pretzel chefs for. We actually did a question about this. Awesome Scott on Twitter wants to know how we feel about combining every single sauce into one dipping sauce, which would be spicy honey mustard, barbecue sauce together.
The suicide sauce?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm with that.
I hate it. More important, where they source the cheese sauce and the mustard for the pretzel.
That's a good call.
Is it a Bavarian mustard? Is it a stone ground? Is it a classic yellow mustard, which there is nothing wrong with? I just have questions.
The Times columnist in this video tried the pretzel no mustard.
Was it Dylan Hernandez?
It was not Dylan Hernandez.
Ask.
Pretzel looks fine. Whatever. Seems like it has a bit of a optimized story. One key detail: there's supposedly a kitchen at every concession stand, so everything is like made theoretically.
I guess I don't know what that means, because
is it made to order, or is it just like
there's no way? There's just like no way that it's made to order, because it would be the slowest stadium in the country.
Not if they have enough vendors, man. Freshness.
Well, there's one vendor, and that seems to be Cisco. No, whoever's giving them the stuff. So
it could be an Arby's.
The sushi. I just no word on the Arby's.
I'd like to eat a Big Montana.
Well, look, no one's going to argue with the best take.
They still have the meats and Intuit.
Yes, they do. The sushi dog, which is an interesting thing here. This is a sushi roll you unwrap and eat like a corn dog. They have a Cali and spicy tuna version. It's like a corn dog with no stick. I don't know. I don't know about this one.
I don't really like weird sushi stuff. I'm not a fan.
The LA Times reporter.
Why would you take something that's so good and just fucking throw up on it? I don't really get it.
The LA Times reporter was like, "Oh, I would never eat in this video." She was like, "I would never eat sushi at a stadium due to the fact that a large part of making good sushi is the quality of the rice you use. And the issue with stadiums is like it's hard to make in a setting like that." She tried the sushi dog, said that for like 45 seconds, and then went, "But I'd take my chances on this one." I thought, very real time, who's paying me to cover this food scenario?
It's diplomatic.
But I don't know about this one.
It's a hard no for me.
It's hard to mess up a California roll, guys.
You're just
Like,
it just
doesn't that.
but it can't it
I just never wanted that at a game. This is like my whole thing with this whole stupid food testing thing is like, it's just really not that deep. No one goes to a game for the food. No one cares.
They do too.
They do not.
Extravagant dishes.
They do
a
not.
Dodger dog? Are you kidding me?
That's a hot dog. You want a hot dog or a hamburger or some popcorn or maybe a pretzel? Like it's just, I just don't get why they have to do this whole thing. It's so stupid. I don't care.
We're getting to the popcorn, which has a real issue, but I want to talk about.
Lay it on me.
We're going to talk about it. The popcorn is toffee flavored, which, hey, there's two kinds of popcorn. There's buttered and there's the toffee. The toffee, Adam's excited. The toffee was tested at like the team facilities. So they just like had the training center try it, and that's what won.
Did coffee taste the toffee?
Ooh, we don't know. That's a good question, though. Maybe they could have.
Sweet popcorn is for people with low IQs.
Will's coming in.
Will's a foodie.
Man.
All right, here's where I'm going to come in hot. So there's the toffee flavored popcorn and then the classic buttered flavor popcorn. To decide the buttered flavor popcorn, the LA Clippers sent Steph Curry 10 kinds of popcorn, or he came to the training facility and picked his favorite buttered popcorn. And in this video, they talk about how they had to call the popcorn expert Steph Curry to pick the popcorn. This is your new stadium. This is your first new stadium, and you have a guy who kills the Clippers, has an iconic moment against them or few, to pick the buttered flavor popcorn. Softest, most upward integration mobility bullshit I've ever seen in my life. This is such a bad idea and such a classic Clippers marketing move where you're like, everything else seems okay. Oh, you made this one dumbass decision? I cannot believe it. I understand if no one cares as much, but I
just don't get why you're overthinking this so hard. They've already figured it out. It's movie theater butter. It's been around since we've been eating hydrogenated oils in the late 70s or whatever. The biggest innovation in popcorn was when they managed to make it so you could eat it at home. Thank you, Orville Redenbacher. But like, it just is not that deep, dude. You get the fucking vegetable oil with the flavoring in it. You put it on there. It's great. I just
have a rival team member pick your buttered flavor popcorn.
Counterpoint, rival for now.
Okay,
when
so
that's Steph's contract up.
That's the other part. Sign and trade for Paul George. We get Steph Curry. Hey, who knows? Actually not crazier things have happened. Crazier things haven't happened, but
I hear Golden State has him on the trading block.
I watched this LA Times video, and when they said that they called Steph Curry to do the popcorn, I went and bought 10 fluorescent light bulbs and just smashed them in my backyard. I was so mad. It's so stupid. Moving on. They have chicken tenders with waffle fries in homage to the South, per Jillian Zucker.
Why?
I don't know. They have barbecue sauce.
What does that have to do with the Clippers?
Got a 10 out of 10. They were always going to have chicken tenders, so you're like, okay. Vegan buffalo wrap, crispy cauliflower, kale, quinoa, tomato, red bell pepper, and vegan ranch vinaigrette.
I think buffalo cauliflower is really hard to fuck up. So
I think this is one that's going to be like a grab and go option, which seems functional.
I'm into it. Not vegan, but I would try that.
Sure. Detroit style pizza, because why have anything that reminds people of Los Angeles between the homage to the South and Detroit's pizza? Cheese, pepperoni, and as Adam mentioned, the meats, which is undisclosed meats on the pizza. They have a proprietary pan to cook this pizza to help it with the crust. It's a square.
Depends. It just depends on how it is, because Detroit pizza, when it's done well, I think like fucking slaps. Great pizza.
Don't they put like sauce on top of the cheese?
They put a little car
third
on
layer
top of it, and you have to eat the car. Because that's how they made pizzas in Detroit. They
It's
put a little
Motown.
car on it.
Eminem blows on it to take away some of the hotness.
I mean, honestly,
Oh
at
yeah,
this
are they gonna
point-
have a mom's spaghetti there?
yeah, they have to. Yeah, they have a Coney Island too. We can get chili cheese dogs.
Ben Gibbard did a song about that. Maybe he'll be involved.
The Intuit Dome hot dog. The meat comes from Neiman Ranch. We got asked by Nash Clips fan, how excited are we for these Neiman Ranch hot dogs? I don't know anything about Neiman Ranch. Apparently, they provide French laundry with their food.
Hello, Neiman.
And if there we go. And if there's one thing I want to be reminded of at a sporting event, it's fine dining. I will say $8 for a dog is not bad. $5 for people with the Chuck mark. So they got the marketing right on this.
You really buried the lead on this whole thing. I feel like this is the best part of everything that they've announced thus far. A $5 hot dog for fans is all
and it's
that I
all
wanted.
beef, right? It's an all beef dog. It's not this mixed meat Farmer John hot dog, right?
Correct. I believe it's
beef,
all
pork, and lamb.
Oh, is it?
No, I don't know. That'd be
I was
great.
like, bro, get some lamb in there. Let's fucking go. Yeah, no, this is you're totally right. Well, this is very clearly this is the number one thing they figured out. And you know what they figured out? Make it cheaper. That was their big innovation for this. They just made it cheaper. So yeah, this is number one on the power rankings, I feel like.
Yeah. Pizza too?
Charging fans not wearing Clippers jerseys, or I mean, just in opposing teams, or unrelated team jerseys, charging them more for beers, I also think is very funny.
Dude, the lost fan cam at Kings game is something they need to do at every single game. And if you're a
it just makes so much sense.
If you're a Lost fan, you should have to pay more for the experience. They have an LA street dog. This is the fancy version, of course. Bacon, peppers, garlic aioli instead of mayonnaise.
This I take umbrage with.
Same. And then mustard, onion, ketchup.
There's great LA street dogs by independent proprietors outside of the stadium. I just think you should get them there.
I mean,
get the $5 hot dog. You don't need to give Steve Ballmer any more money. It's fine.
Double cheeseburger, American cheese, pickles, Clippers sauce. And it's a brisket short rib.
What do you think is Clippers sauce?
Thousand Island dressing.
Oh, okay.
Would be my guess.
With that.
Everybody's special sauce is the same thing. Thousand Island.
It's a brisket short rib and prime chuck patty. This seems like a pretty solid offering.
How much is it?
$38. No, I have no idea. They only listed the price of the hot dog, which I would say is a little worrisome. You went through like 12 items. You list the price of one item. And then finally, the churro, which was advised by the chief technology and digital officer, who is a big churro head. I think
this has been figured out for longer than
hundreds of years, centuries. Has the churro been around for centuries?
They want to make it special, all right.
It's already
spruce it up.
Special enough. Have you ever had a churro?
Every
churro is pretty special.
Every churro is. I can't even think of a bit for churros because it's just a churro. But these are the basic offerings. I think the hot dog is a clear winner. Yeah.
No dips, huh?
No dip. Very few dips.
What no mission? Guess we'll be bringing our own.
Yeah. If you would like the clips and dip, bring your own dip kit to Intuit. We will sell you a proprietary little pocket. It's a plastic sheet you put in your jacket. So you can put dips, and you can just go doink. And then
sounds like there's a hole in the market that needs to be filled. If you know what I'm saying, guys. Okay. I know this isn't Shark Tank at the moment, but
Sharks, I'm proposing dip at the Intuit Dome. They just shoot you in the head. Okay, now that we have talked about the Intuit Dome offering,
I wish they did something goofy. Like, I wish there was some more goofy stuff on.
I am dying for a goofy local fit. Like, it'd be fun. Also,
why no Fresh Catch? Isn't that the most? I mean, that's like one of the more iconic LA fairs.
This is something we'll have to keep tabs on. No mention of local restaurants in the Intuit Dome yet.
Not allowed.
That quite literally might be true, but that was something that was kind of a talking point at the beginning of this whole process. Was local artisans having food offerings in the stadium. I don't know, something to think about.
They knew Will would complain more about that.
They put out a video. It's to be complained about. Okay, Adam. Before we get into the dip talk, would you like to reveal who you saw in Burbank today? Which sounds like something my aunt would like to reveal to me as well.
Okay. Well, young man, sit down for this. Because one of my top 10 favorite actors, one of the most underrated actors of our time, who has been in at least 3 of my favorite movies
You
ever,
vamped all episode. You can kind of just get to it at this point, my man.
including, I'm trying to bring up the video right here. I'm stalling. Ninja Turtles, the original. Casey Jones.
A
is who I met
Jose
today.
Canseco bat? Tell me, you didn't pay money for
Not
this.
the guy who played Raphael.
Right.
Nobody.
But
guy who played
Casey
Casey
Jones, also known as Elias Cotillas, who is a Canadian actor who has been in such films in large roles like A Thin Red Line, which is one of my favorite movies ever. Hilarious. Which came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan, which is the only reason it was overlooked. Will, I know you know Terrence Malick films. Come on.
Yeah.
Thin Red Line is
It's a
one
great-
of
it's
the
a great
greatest
movie.
films
Yeah.
ever, with maybe the greatest cast ever.
And he played
And
Casey Jones
Elias
in that too,
is
right?
huge in it. He did not play Casey Jones. He was also in a great film called Fallen with Denzel Washington.
About the White House.
No.
Wait.
This isn't White House Down with Gerard Butler or whatever. He was also in a great film called Zodiac, a David Fincher movie.
That's
Elite
one of my
movie.
favorite. That's one of my
Elite
favorite
movie.
movies.
One of the most underrated David Fincher movies of all time. I love
Underrated
him.
Gyllenhaal movie too.
He's in The Prophecy with Viggo
Christopher
Mortensen and
Walken?
Christopher Walken.
Good ass
He's
movie.
the main actor in it. He is so effing cool, and I think should have been in larger roles. But I met him today in Burbank. It was like a bucket list thing for me. I've been on cloud 9 all
Did you
day.
get the digis?
You guys gonna kick it?
I hope so. I should have been like, I've been hanging out with Camera Obscura and all these other cool people. Like, you want to be part
Do
of
you
my
like
crew too?
bands?
Yeah,
Maybe they'll give him his version of The Whale in a couple years or something. He'll get an Academy Award.
he really should. Like, he is an all-time great actor, one of the most underrated guys out there.
There we
Elias.
go. That's awesome. I think you have a Casey Jones Funko thing too.
I do have one.
We
How
gave
have
you
you
one.
seen? Oh,
We
you gave it to me?
you for Christmas.
I was wondering who gave me that.
Oh.
You know I love Casey
It was
Jones.
for your birthday.
The
Birthday, yeah.
1990
My
original
Christmas.
Ninja Turtles movie is a top 5 comic book movie ever. Maybe number 1 for me. Holds up. Fantastic. Jim Henson did the costumes, hence the reference to that earlier. 6 degrees of separation there. But Casey Jones is my favorite character in that. And I told him that today. And I needed that in my life.
And you got it. And we have 2 dips to talk about. We had some dip questions, but we might have to save those for another episode when we have some more time. Adam, I picked yet again a bad dip, but I really tried hard this time. Adam, you go first. Yours was good. Or do you want me to go first because mine was bad?
You go first. You go
Okay,
first. You get
so-
the bad dip out of the way.
I am house sitting in Sierra Madre again. That's why this puppet is over my left shoulder. And I went to a local market and I thought I'm going to get a local brand salsas, pretty big local thing people can make at farms. So I picked up E. Waldo Wards, who started in Sierra Madre. They've been around since 1891. I picked up their apple salsa. I was in a bit of a pinch. It was the only salsa they offered. Horrible. I would not recommend this salsa. It is way too sweet. It has no...
An apple?
It's all they had, man. I'm sure they have other salsas that are good. I will not be purchasing this apple salsa again. Swing and a miss. I tried. This is what happens when you support local business. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone should support local businesses. But this was a misguided option. Maybe it's more for the Sierra Madre crowd. It's not salsa-ish. It's not salsa-y. It's apple saucy.
You're not bringing it to the party?
I am, dude. Well, this is one I would bring to my enemy's barbecue. And I used classic Cali Dad chips. as the base, but I would bring them to an enemy's party and then leave. So the lowest rating. Again, I'm 1 for 3 on dips, and I feel like a fucking idiot.
Well, glad I didn't make that mistake. I like a peach
I'm happy
salsa.
for
I
you
don't know
too.
about apple.
Now you do.
I can cleanse the palate here with actually a fantastic dip
Lay
that
it on us.
I don't know. It's kind of underground. I don't know if you guys have ever had it before, but this dip is special and it has quickly become one of my favorites. I don't know if you guys have tried it. It's Doritos Cool Ranch
Are you
dip
fucking
with
kidding me,
jalapeno.
dude? It's not good.
You've had it?
It's not good. I know you've been away. This is dude, we got to document this too. You don't pay attention in meetings.
No, you had it when I was on the show.
He's
I
doing a bit.
know. And it was bad.
Well, I have to do the test now. What do you think, Chuck? You've had it before.
I guarantee you it's not falling out. Half of it is quick dry cement.
Damn.
I'll tell you what, I am not doing that with this apple salsa.
Okay, it's not great. It's not as bad as
I
Chuck
told
said,
you
though,
that.
either.
I
Now,
told you
part of
that.
the reason might be because I have these buffalo-style protein chips that I'm dipping in it. So, the buffalo style with the Cool Ranch, that's a good combination. It's
Are
probably
you
more about
copying
the
me on the
dip in this
keto thing
case.
now?
Yeah, Adam's just copying.
Man, I was doing
shit.
keto before anyone, okay? I am keto. Me and Elias.
Adam Keto Oslin. And Will, you do not have a dip. Do you have any dip related wisdom you'd like to impart before we hit this outro? Because you are Will is a fantastic cook and knows so much about cooking. What do you got? No pressure.
I'm thinking
Law
a
Murray
zest-
had
I'm
nothing.
thinking a zesty crab dip for summer.
Oh shit! And you know what? You could pair with that the chip of the summer. Adam, do you know the chip of the summer?
The one the Boston Celtics are about to win.
Lay's made a Cuban sandwich chip, and it is the best chip in the world. It's the chip of the summer.
You want to talk about doing too much?
No, they got it right.
Did they really?
They have. You haven't had it.
Lay's did it?
Lay's did it.
Not some cool crinkle chip company or whatever?
No, not some cool crinkle chip company. Like Crinkles chips.
Yeah, not them. Because their pepperoni one is fabulous.
No, Crinkles chips did not do this one. All right, we got to get out of here. We're just going to keep talking about dips. We're going to be back next week. I guess we should talk the draft because the Clippers do pick in the middle class, 46th pick. So we're going to all come with 27 draft prospects we think the Clippers could take at 46. That's going to be a good time. We're going to try and get Carl Tart on here. Will, if someone wanted to review us or if they're signing their resignation letter and they want to leave a cool PS where people could maybe get smarter or something at their workplace, where could people do that?
Yeah, if you want to educate your friends and family to be as smart of an off-season listener as you are, tell them to listen to this podcast wherever they get their podcasts. If you listen over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you leave us a little rating or review, I don't even think there's a limit on how many times you can review it on Spotify. So just, get those numbers up there. Help us out. Of course, the best way to consume the show is over on youtube.com. That's at Clippers Podcast. But no matter how you consume, hey, we appreciate you.
We do appreciate you. And Adam, first of all, so happy we're all three back. I was so lost without you. I was going, what are we talking about today? What are we doing? Adam, it's been missing. We need one positive thing to send these Clippers fans out on their weekend to think about.
Seems like we're going to find out in the next 2 weeks what is going to happen with Paul George. And I think fans are anxious to get to the bottom of this because, like we talked about, it was a storyline coming into this season. So I don't think we're going to have to wait much longer. And by the way, everyone's talking about him and Joel Embiid on the pregame show on ABC right now. And I guess it was pretty funny. I don't know. But I thought he was fine. I thought he was fine the first show. Did you hate it?
No, I mean, he only got to talk for like 10 seconds. So
you have too many people on there.
Law Murray was like the ratio of host to time for these finals makes like no sense.
Well, it's like the size of the Doomsday Strategy panel and Dr. Strangelove. It's like, how many people do you have to get to the bottom of who's going to win tonight between two teams? God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
So that's
Paul George. I think it's positive. It's going to put some minds at ease because everything else that happens with this Clippers team, this is the first domino really to fall. We all expect James Harden to likely be coming back, but how are they going to build the team with or without Paul George? How are they going to reconfigure this thing?
I don't know. That's less of a positive vibe and more of a void vibe.
I
but
met
You
Elias
guys think it's the end of the finals?
yeah,
tonight. I mean, if
unless
it's not
that
tonight,
pregame
it's
prayer
Sunday.
works for Dallas. I think it's over.
It's
gonna be
over
Sunday.
regardless. No one's ever come back down 3-0. So congrats to the Boston Celtics and Luka haters everywhere. Which there are plenty when it comes to Clippers fans.
We're doing okay right now. All right.
We back up.
We're about a little bit. We're still very down bad. All right. That wraps it up. Thank you to everyone who listened, who watched. We'll be back next week. And as always, let's go Clips.